For Global Business Updates, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. First of all, Asia Pacific and the fact that there has been some sort of result, as far as we can make out, in the United States about the debt ceiling has pushed the markets up there. Hong Kong's up the leader in the region, up 3%, basically on property and also on consumer spending. China's up very, very slightly, but more importantly, let's talk about China and its electrical vehicle industry. Li Auto is seeing deliveries up 146% in the year. It's still very much third and fourth compared with Tesla and XPeng and so on, but nevertheless, it's seen a huge Tesla and BYD rather. It's seen a huge increase in deliveries, and it's doing extremely well. So there's a huge appetite for electrical vehicles in China. It's expected the market will grow by 32% this year, which is actually quite a big number. As far as the United States is concerned, so the US debt ceiling bill passed the Senate as expected. The debt ceiling is now raised, but Fed funding is actually capped for 2 years. I think, I may be alone in this, I think that this points slightly towards a bit of a slowdown as far as the United States is concerned. We're going to get the May jobs figures, which will, according to experts, not me, but experts, actually the market's saying that that will show a slowdown in the jobs market. Let's turn now to, but that's what most people are focusing on, and clearly the Fed, of course, on the 13th and 14th of June, where they're going with interest rates. Let's look at what Elon Musk is supposed to have done in China. His recent visit is just over. He's now confirmed as the richest man because Tesla shares were 24% up in May, and he owns a lot of those. He met top China officials, including the foreign minister, the finance minister, and also the vice president of China. He's doing a lot there, actually, and he's getting to know people, which I happen to think is par for the course, really, as far as that's concerned. So it's clear that Musk is probably doing slightly more than American politicians are as far as encouraging trade between those two countries is concerned. We're going to see the big Apple product launch next week, their new headset. What they want it to do is have a bigger impact as the Apple Watch did when that was launched. Get this, 2014, that's 9 years ago. And it should be taking these kind of headsets to a wider audience. That's what they want to do. They're very good with taking tech to a wider audience. You get high definition screens on that. Spectacles also allow you to have an interaction with your current surroundings as well as virtual surroundings too. The EU is, let's turn our attention to that, is now asking the UK to rejoin trade deals. The car industry is very worried about this business about sourcing. It will attract tariffs unless components are sourced either from the UK or within the EU. The problem is that a lot of car batteries for electric vehicles are sourced from China. 40% are sourced from China, and that's actually therefore going to attract tariffs on their cars, which will affect their sales worldwide. So that's an ongoing trade discussion. In the UK, the pensions lifeboat. Now, again, that sounds extremely boring, but what it is, it's a huge pension fund. It's worth probably £39 billion. It's called the Pension Protection Fund. The reason I'm mentioning it is that they're moving away from equities because they think that interest rates are going to hit equities as assets. Interest rate rise are going to hit equities as assets, and they're moving towards infrastructure and also forestry. So that's quite a big shake-up for them. Remember that the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has already said here interest rates will rise. He's not saying, not really bothered about a recession. He's just going to try to combat inflation. 8.7% year on year in April, if you need any reminding. UK's farmers are facing daily price rises. That's feeding into supermarkets as we speak. They don't get the sort of handouts that they used to get from the EU anymore. Their food costs and thus price rises in supermarkets are rising at the fastest pace for 45 years. That takes us back to 1978. That's quite a long time ago. UK, how are train strikes actually affecting the economy? Well, fact of the matter is that the majority of people are actually probably working from home still. And so that's what they can do. If not, they'll take to their bicycles. But what is being hit clearly are things like Pret-a-Manger, which is like a coffee stroke sandwich chain, which is present in stations and around city centres and so on. But only, get this is the statistic the rail unions need to think about, only 1 in 10 workers actually travel by train. 70% work from home. That's what the ASLEF and the train drivers and the train companies really need to think about. The UK, British Airways is being fined £1.1 million by the US government. This is about, apparently, the lack of compensation that passengers got because of pandemic cancellations. The US authorities received 1,200 complaints. British Airways has said it had done nothing wrong, and people and it said, well, it acted, as it says, lawfully. So in other words, it's satisfied itself that it's paid these kind of compensations in a lawful way. Again, this is going to make a load of money for lawyers, presumably. And as far as London's concerned, London still works. Now, you will have been hearing that in the City of London, the IPOs have been shrinking. The construction company CRH decided to have its IPO in New York, as did Arm Software. But this is the CEO of something called We Soda. He's called Alistair Warren, and this is going to be a £6 billion IPO in London, which will bring back some of the reputation of the City of London as being a good place to do business. Finally, as far as commodities are concerned, oil, crude prices, really, what on earth is going to happen with OPEC Plus over the weekend in Vienna when they meet? Nobody really knows. That's what is driving the volatility right now. And gold is vacillating, really depends on where you think the Fed's going to move. That's what's deciding the price of gold as we speak. That is the global view this morning.
Quickly, Michael, I thought the pension rate was supposed to be pegged with inflation in the lock system you have in the UK. So what is this new scheme going on?
Oh, no. What this is, it's not a new scheme. This is the pension protection fund itself. It just happens to be a big fund. It's how many billions is it? It's huge as far as funds are concerned. The reason for my mentioning it this morning, it's £39 billion worth of assets, which it has. What this fund is actually doing, it protects you in the case of your pension up to a certain point failing. But the reason for the story is that actually they're shifting from equities into what they think is less volatile, which is infrastructure and forestry, which is quite a move, really, considering the size of the fund. That's what that story's about.
Okay, so Michael, morning again. It's good to see you today. I was just wondering, the cycling path in London, when there are issues with a train and vehicles, and you know the amount of trouble you have when you're getting into central London with congestion charges and so on and so forth. Cycling path, is it being improved? And also the UK farmers that you talked about, I was wondering, help me understand, is it a case of the amount of money that they need to procure things that they need for their produce, or the prices of their own produce is increasing and is affecting buyers? I didn't quite
precisely. Farmers concerned. That's what I was saying. That they're facing daily price rises and they're being forced to pass it on. What they're saying is they're not profiteering from high prices. It's just that the cost of their feed and everything out of the fertilizer is rising on a daily basis, and they have to pass these on. Somebody has got to take a hit, or a haircut, as you would put it in financial services, as far as profit margins are concerned. Whether that farmers may do it, supermarkets may do it, maybe they'll share it, but no, that's what that particular that story's back. As far as traffic in London is concerned, yeah, I mean, many people are very cross about that. We got low, we got non-traffic neighbourhoods, which is annoying a lot of people, because nobody's saying don't buy cars anymore. It's just that some people actually, I need a car. I don't actually live in central London. If I lived in central London, I wouldn't have a car probably. But the congestion charge is a problem, as is the atmospheric legislation as well, which apparently is not about fuel; it's about tyres. But the Mayor of London apparently doesn't see it like that. So there's a lot of debate about this. Has it made travel through London any easier? No, the congestion charge has certainly not done that. All it seems to have done is to split roads into bicycle lanes and vehicle lanes, and that's just slowing everything down. I've often tried to get around Lagos, for example. The traffic's not quite as bad in London as it is there, but nobody is really thinking in a joined up way about what one needs to do about traffic. What would they do in Lagos? Build a new causeway, presumably.
Well, we're looking forward to that solution in Lagos, Michael, in terms of traffic control. Well, let me ask you about what's going on with Apple and in India, in South India to be exact. I'm really looking forward to their newest product in the market and hoping that would show up in terms of profits for them. But in terms of manufacturing, one of their biggest manufacturer, Foxconn, is set to start producing in India next April more Apple products. And obviously, this is moving away from majority coming from China. This arrangement is set to create at least 50,000 jobs. However, in terms of sales for Apple in India, it's still said to be, lagging behind other competitors, cheaper competitors, for phones from China, phones from South Korea. Do you think this investment in India would have any impact on Apple sales in that country?
I think it will. I think what they've started their consumer stores, haven't they, in India, and I think that those will have an impact. What I was trying to say as far as the virtual reality headsets are concerned is what Apple is hoping is that this will be as big a leap forward in terms of their products as the iWatch was in 2014. And what Apple is very good at is bringing technology to the consumer. So that's number one. Number two, I think that Apple are looking at India, and who's to say they're wrong or they're right? I don't know. But what they're thinking is that more people will go for their high-end products because it is a market which has only had low-end products projected to it, and they have faith in high-spending Indian consumers. They may be right, they may be wrong, but that's the business decision, and that's the risk that they're taking. And yes, are they moving away from China? Well, they are in a way. They're diversifying their supply chain, so they don't get caught out in the same way that most companies did during the pandemic.
Right. Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. We're going to go to Rotos now for Africa Business Update. Rotos, how's it going?
Doing well, Rufai. Good morning to you. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Akade. So you're starting with insecurity. Actually, there's economic implications for that, right? If you can't get a secure country, then you're not going to. Tourism, for example, falls into the toilet. People can't travel. So the President meeting with the security chiefs, emphasizing the fact that has to be something that's on the front burner is important. Looking at his quotes, though, it looks like there is going to be a bit of spending that's going to be done on the security front, which is going to add to, the fiscal objectives, right? So it's saying invest more in security personnel, and being more than an increase in just numbers. So it's more than boots on the ground, providing training equipment, and then Ayo was talking about welfare. Pay and firepower, all that is just going to add to it. Pulled this from his manifesto where he was talking about anti-terrorist battalions, upgrading weapon systems. One, I think it was Ayo that mentioned technology for weapons, and then integrated identity database, and then improving salaries and welfare. So that's, I guess, his holistic approach to trying to improve this. But there is going to be quite a bit of spending. But we simply have to get security right in the country, and he has to get it. He's made it number one point in his manifesto, and we have to see the results as quickly as possible, because that's just going to flow through as far as the economy is concerned, and give people more confidence to invest in the country, to move around, and so on and so forth. To palliatives, you've seen the, I don't even think I like that word anymore. It's more of an intervention than palliatives. But on the fuel subsidy front cover of today's, well, yeah, well, possibly. So that's our front page there, exclusive with Mele Kyari, where he said, Tinubu has directed palliatives to be put in place. But the question now is, how do you do it specifically? I had Mustafa Chike Obi, the chairman of the Bank Directors Association of Nigeria. He touched on that. He was there to talk about an outlook for the banking sector, but we also, everybody's talking about subsidies, so he lent his thoughts on that. Here's what he said, particularly about palliatives or intervention.
That the month of June will have been spent in preparing what I consider targeted interventions. And I think those should come in the form of the sharpest instrument is to use things like food stamps targeted to the poorest people. Food stamps for transportation, stamps for transportation, for gari, for rice, things like that. You can actually give the poorest, and they can use it to buy gari and all those things at subsidized rates. That's been done all over the world. It doesn't take more than a month to create and administer. I would have thought that should have been part of the communication. But it's done now, and the policy is correct. I wish the communication and the administration of it was smoother.
All right, so I think Rufai earlier mentioned the camaraderie between Democrats and Republicans earlier on the debt ceiling deal. And so we put this up yesterday when we were looking at the agreement, right? And particularly I'm just tying this to food stamps. So if you look at the takeaways, they lifted it for 2 years, and then the Republicans put in what they want. I'm going to tie this together to palliatives in a second. Trimming IRS and COVID spending. The key there is the SNAP work requirements. At the bottom, SNAP is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for the poorest Americans, right? And so Republicans feel it's an ideological thing. They feel that Democrats have been spending too much money on welfare programs. They need to cut spending. So what McCarthy on the right managed to agree with Biden on the left was to put in work requirements for people who get the SNAP vouchers, which is basically food stamps. But the thing here is that they're saying that you have to have some kind of work requirements to get these benefits. You can't just get them outright. But the point I'm trying to make here is that is a program that is in place for the people at the lowest rung. Those SNAP, the supplemental nutrition is basically for food. So what Mr. Mustafa Chike Obi was saying is, can that be implemented here? And as you were saying, as he was playing,
yes, because that's way better than the 5-5K they want to share for God knows
the welfare thing. Yeah,
this will make more impact, just like if they can do better health outcomes. But my only quibble was the fact that Nigeria is a largely informal country. You are talking about COVID, you are talking about SNAP. Rotus, I know people that are Americans that they were in Nigeria when lockdown happened. They were getting their COVID checks in America.
Yes. Not just in the UK.
In the UK, they're getting their COVID checks. Have they ever posted it? Have you gotten any check?
Yeah, so I see the challenge you're talking about. It's
in a former country where we are.
Okay, so if you look at the security list from the president's manifesto, that third or fourth bullet point where he said an integrated data management system. Because data, look, we talk about data and it's important. So number 3 there. So your identity database, if you are fighting terrorism, you're going to need that in order to know who is where and so on. And so that also filters into the, if you're going to do a food stamp program, who are the poorest? Where do they live? So the data is from security to palliatives or intervention, whatever you call it. It is very important that the president follows through on what is in his manifesto to make sure that goes through. So that's that. And then the Daily Trust. We talked about the FX thing yesterday. So the Daily Trust is really, they are sticking to their story. This is what they put out yesterday, that we stand by our story on the 630 naira devaluation, according to them. But the CEO CBN said, because they put this out there and I got a lot of questions from people, wrote us who is right, who is wrong, who's telling the truth, who is not. So I just said, okay, let's just, explain it out there. If you look at a headline from the Cable, all right, the Cable actually got it right. The Cable said the Naira briefly trades at 6.32 per dollar at the I&E window as demand pressure worsens. So it was an intraday trade. If you take a look at a circular from 2017, this is when the I&E window was first introduced, right? The central bank said the establishment of the investors and exporters window. That's what the I and the E stand for. And they're essentially saying that if you look at the bottom of the screen, the purpose of this window is to boost liquidity in the FX market and ensure timely execution and settlement for eligible transactions. Also, if we flip forward, this is very key here, operational requirements. Point A. The exchange rates of the transactions in the window shall be agreed between authorized dealers and their counterparts, i.e. willing buyer and willing seller. So, Rufai, you could be an investor, Ayo and Kaide are exporters. The two of you could, during the day, in a given 24-hour day, right, you could agree to trade at 500. Yes. Kaide and Ayo could agree to trade at 430. So because the day that 632 to dollar trade happened, it still closed at 463. So the daily trust.
I would like to comment about.
Yeah, no, certainly, because the daily trust took that one trade and now said that the CBN has devalued. So that was a complete misunderstanding of what it was an intraday trade, not a devaluation. Now the thing is this, right? Why is this happening? It's because the president said there needs to be a unification of rates. So that's essentially what we're seeing. Yeah.
Lotus, let me jump on there. See, please, I think the Daily Trust should accept their blame and be schooled properly. Let's call it spade a spade. This job we are doing is not a pity party. You cannot put on your headline based on the conversations of one or two people that the currency was devalued based on an intraday trade. For your information, at some point in April too, it traded over 600.
Right.
Does it mean it's devalued? No. Yeah. It's a window, it's a market. And then when I read their statement for that, the next thing they said is, we have our journalists won awards. I'm like, heck yeah, I win awards every day here. Heck yeah. See, because you see what Daily Trust did yesterday, Rotus. If we had not stemmed the time and investing, and these are the things we do for Nigeria, could have sent us into a speculator's tailspin, and the dollar would trade on their booking FX,
which is banned.
Which is banned.
Yeah, right.
No,
it's here anyway.
on the street market for close to 1,000 naira yesterday.
We need to go now.
Yeah, okay. It would have been a speculator's paradigm.
To get in, right?
Respond. Yes, a number of things to talk about with regards to suggestions and recommendations on how to actually make the palliatives.
Make them work.
Well, thank you very much, Protus, for your time this morning.